Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Steve Warnick, Reb Steve, Rabbi Warnick, one of the rabbis of Beth Tzedek congregation, and you are joining us for Conversations Over Coffee, our weekly video blog. I don't know if it's really constitutes as a blog, but I have fun talking to people in our community and people really from around the world about what I find interesting, and hopefully you find it interesting too. Today's guest is Annamie Paul, who is the head of the Green Party of Canada, and new to the position as a party leader and just last 6 months or so. So I suppose that's still new. I've been at Beth Tzedek now for 2 years. I still consider myself the new rabbi, and I'll probably hang on to that for at least another 10 years, because why not? Annamie, how are you? Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, it just seems like I've been going since morning.
I know. I had to check myself as looking down.
Right.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Reb Steve. Very nice to be with you.
Thank you. As it turns out, today is like International Women's Day, which when we booked this, we weren't. I certainly wasn't aware that that was on the calendar, but I suppose that's our mazel, our good luck.
Yes.
What does that mean to you to have a day dedicated internationally to women, to women's issues, to leadership? I would imagine. What does a day like this mean to you, and how are you marking it?
Well, just a few things first. First, I wanted to say a belated Chag Sameach for Purim and an anticipatory Chag Sameach for Pesach. And then also recognize that I'm here in Toronto on the traditional territories of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee. And yes, it's such a pleasure to be with you on International Women's Day. I'm having a lot of fun. We've already done a few events today already related to International Women's Day. I got to speak with Daughters of the Vote. These are young women from all over Canada who are spending a virtual week as parliamentarians, getting a taste of what it's like to lead at that level. We did a roundtable talking about International Women's Day, the impact of the pandemic, and what we want to see in a green and feminist recovery. And I also spoke with the executive director of the Native Women's Resource Center of Toronto about what today means for Indigenous women. So all of that, Reb, in the last couple of hours. So it has been a busy morning.
And it's only 12:30.
Right. And later today, I'll be interviewed by Evan Solomon on Power Play about International Women's Day. And so this is a big International Women's Day. And so more than anything, it's a celebration. It's a celebration of women, of our leadership, and especially after the year that we've been through, of all the things that women have done all over the world to take care of their communities. You know, there are women who helped research all of those vaccines that we're now benefiting from. So we've had a showcase of female leadership all over the world during this pandemic, and I'm definitely celebrating that this year.
When I think about the vaccine and women's leadership, Dolly Parton always comes specifically to mind.
Yeah.
You know, what she's done for her community, in particular, in terms of literacy and book reading, and then just really being a wonderful voice for leadership, especially around the vaccine, is important. You talked about a green recovery to COVID. And certainly that's on the top of the agenda. It seems for Canada in particular. We note that the United States has rejoined the Paris Accords, although it's some time for that process to come through before they're formally back in. What are some of the things that you and your party are looking towards and really think have to be essential elements of any kind of green recovery for Canada?
Mm-hmm. First, just because, you know, it's a casual conversation, I have to say that I'm trying to get the Islands in the Stream song of Dolly Parton out of my head now. Now that you mentioned her.
Good luck.
I've actually gotten the kids very excited about Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers as well, and they've been listening to their music. So anyway, I'll sing it later just to get it out of my head. But for
And
now,
and if memory serves, I think it was Lionel Richie who actually wrote that song for the two of them.
yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. I love that song. So a green recovery, it is something that is very apropos to speak about today, because when we think about what kind of recovery we want after the pandemic, we want it to be one that helps us learn the lessons that we were very hard learned during this pandemic. That without a proper social safety net, that women suffer, and they usually suffer the most, whether it's because they are the ones that do the kind of precarious work, self-employed work that is lost the first, whether it's because women are the majority of people in long-term care. And we saw what has happened in our long-term care facilities. Whether it's because women work, women are part of the labor force, but they're also usually the primary caregivers for not only their children, but also for other family members, and the struggles that they had with caregiving and with proper childcare. So all of the things that we've seen during this pandemic, when we're planning our recovery, we've got to be planning those things. So when we talk about a green recovery, there's two components. The first is completing our social safety net to make sure that if we end up here again, women and people in general are better protected. And then the second part, of course, is we need a livable planet. And I am a mother. I want a future for my children. I want a future for myself. Women are hurt the worst by our warming climate here and abroad. So we need to be bending the curve on our greenhouse gas emissions. We need to make sure that we're not going to enter into runaway global warming. And we can do that with a green recovery and the kind of jobs and economy that they produce. It's an enormous economic opportunity. And I really want to see Canada getting its fair share of that exciting future.
What do you say to Alberta, whose economy has been so immersed in fossil fuels, and seems to be really struggling not only with the drop of prices of a barrel of oil, but also, from what I've been reading, and I admit I've only been in Canada for 2 years, so though I'm a news junkie and I in a political wonk, so to speak. I don't claim to be expert on this, but it seems that Alberta's economy is very much centered on fossil fuels, on oil. The Keystone Pipeline has just been canceled, pushback on carbon taxes, and so forth and so on. As someone who leads a federal party, and I would imagine would like to be prime minister ideally, and certainly in the government minimally, what's the message that the party has for provinces like Alberta and the challenges that it faces?
First, that we are in this with you. We have Green Party members on the prairies, out in Newfoundland, in those regions that are very heavily dependent upon the fossil fuel sector. And so we are there. We are members of your community. And when we think about what needs to come next, we are thinking about you and your future. That is always the heart of everything for us, the people. And we don't want to wait until it's too late. We have examples here in Canada of governments or corporations that told people that everything was fine up until the very last minute. And then the local economy collapsed because the natural resource ran out or the price collapsed, and those communities were displaced and never were able to reconstitute themselves. And so we don't want to see the same fate out on the prairies, especially when there is so much potential to be right at the forefront of a green economy. Alberta and Saskatchewan have a ton of engineers. The workers who work out in the oil patch, their skills are immediately transferable into green jobs, and those jobs pay more money. And most importantly, perhaps, they let people go home at the end of the day. My brother was a roughneck out in Alberta in the oil patch, and he spent months away from his family, months away from them, in a job that was also very dangerous. And so giving
You have to excuse me. What's a roughneck?
it's what it sounds like, right? It's kind of like an onomatopoeia. It's the guys, and I say guys because 99% of the people doing this work are men, and usually young men. They're the guys who work on the crews out on the oil rigs. So they're the ones, if you can imagine, with a hard hat, just covered head to toe in this sludge, which is a mixture of the mud and the chemicals that you get doused with all day as you're just, moving the pipes to dig for oil. That's what he did. So they're called roughnecks, which makes it clear this is not management. These are the guys that you work a 10-hour shift and you're out there in this deafening noise all day long with these big pipes swinging back and forth, any one of which might hit you. And some of them did hit my brother's crew members and hurt them very, very badly. It's really dangerous, difficult work. And so if you offer an alternative that is safer, that is better paid, and that you can take immediately, you don't need some big retraining, then that's a job that he and the members of his crew will take. So that's what we're trying to say. Let's plan a future that is brighter than what we have, and let's not wait until it's too until it's too late. It is entirely possible. We have the opportunity to do it in the post-pandemic green recovery.
What were the experiences that motivated you into politics and into the politics of a Green Party in particular?
The earliest roots certainly were in childhood. If you're fortunate enough, and I was, to be a part of a family that really believed in public service. My mom was a teacher. My grandma was a nurse before coming to Canada, and then she was a personal support worker here. It was just, you don't know when it begins. You just know that being of service, thinking about your life in the context of the community, is something that's just a part of you. And so for me, I always had the expectation that whatever I did in life, that it had to be of service to the immediate community, and then perhaps to the greater community. So that's really the roots. In terms of the Green Party, when I'm asked that question, I always say that what you want ideally in politics is to not be in conflict with the other parts of yourself. You can almost see it on the face of some politicians when they're saying something that they don't really mean, or they don't really feel, or contradicts their values. And I didn't ever want to be in that position. And so aligning my values, many of them are Jewish values around the interconnectedness of things, tikkun olam, those values that are just guiding ones for me in my life. I found those in the values of the Green Party. And so being at one with my personal values and my political values was really important to me. And I find that I'm able to do that in this party.
So you personally, you live at this fascinating intersection of being a woman of color, and being a Jewish person. To the extent that you're willing and able, talk a little bit about what you think are the both the opportunities and unique experiences that you have for that, but also some of the really difficult challenges that you faced as a result of just who you are.
Yeah. Yes, there is the bitter and the sweet. Our little advanced reference to Pesach, perhaps, but there really is.
And we dip the bitter in the sweet.
That's right. That's right. The two things these things are linked, and often you can't have one without the other. And I accept that. In terms of what is very good about this, I will say that International Women's Day is a reminder of what is good. At the moment, I am the only woman to lead a major federal party in Canada. And myself and Elizabeth, the leader that preceded me, we are the only women to have led a major federal party in Canada in the last almost 20 years, if you can imagine. We've only had 5 women in the entire history of Canada elected to lead their parties. And right now in our provinces and territories, there is only 1 woman premier out of those 13 roles. So being able to be here as a symbol that it is important to have women in politics, that our voice matters, giving some hope, even if it's a faint hope at the moment, that yes, in fact, even as a woman, just a woman, never mind a woman of color or a Jewish woman, that it is possible to achieve the highest levels in political life is important. In terms of the Jewish community, I know that in general, people perceive our community as being wildly successful in every domain, maybe not sports, but everything else.
In ownership, sports ownership, not necessarily on the field.
That's right. So it always surprises, even within our community, when I say, look, I'm the first Jewish woman to lead a federal, to be elected to lead a federal party. And I'm only the second Jewish person, period. And the last time was 1975. And we only have 7 Jewish people in parliament right now. And so this is a field where we also have a lot of hills to climb, and having young people from our community contact me and say they're inspired and say they can see themselves reflected now is really, really positive. And I know that I'm having an important symbolic impact. The flip side, Rebbe, is that the work can be quite lonely. It is very, very difficult. The days are very, very long, and the days are not, there's no certainty to the day. There's no pattern. You get interrupted by world events or events within the country, particularly during the pandemic. You have to respond. There's a lot of weight that's put on everything that you say. Certainly being a Jewish woman in this role is unprecedented. And so there's a lot of expectation on me. I feel the pressure of that, but also the privilege of that. There is no question that anti-Semitism is alive and well, unfortunately, and that in politics is no exception to that. And so there's that pressure as well. And so, yes, it's, there's all of those pressures that you have to endure every single day. I feel like I have a little squirt of adrenaline always running through my blood, which definitely is not a healthy thing either. And then, of course, the family life gets sacrificed as well. I've got 2 sons, and my partner and we've been together for almost 30 years now. So they understand, but definitely we don't get the time that we used to.
It seems during your campaign for leadership that anti-Semitism was almost a larger problem than color. What do you make of that?
Well, yes, that's correct. And I think perhaps it's, and I'm someone who has a background in policy and policy analysis. And so I always hesitate to use anecdotal evidence to draw any general conclusions. But certainly it seemed like there was a great deal more acceptable space to come after me on the basis of my Jewish identity than on my Black identity. Last year was the moment of renewed awareness of anti-Black racism, particularly coming out of the events in the United States with George Floyd, but then also events here in Canada. And so perhaps the acceptable space for those kind of comments shrunk, but there was no corresponding shrinkage of the space for anti-Semitic remarks. And so and on social media and public forums, I received attacks. I know that every Jewish politician does. We all have to endure this. And so, yes, for me, it was something that I had to learn to cope with, my family as well. And it's an ongoing challenge. I would say it becomes a bit of white noise in the background. It never quite goes away, but you learn to look beyond it.
Are you concerned that the incidents of anti-Semitism in Canada seem to be on the rise for the last 3 years? And do you think the country is doing enough to combat it?
We certainly need to be ever vigilant. There are certain ideologies, certain attitudes that just find succor. They find fertile ground if they are not challenged immediately. And that was anecdotally my experience. You know, that a sort of a side swipe or an innuendo that went unchallenged would become a little more explicit the next time. And if that went unchallenged, it would become a little more explicit. And so the silence absolutely emboldens hate and anti-Semitism. And there is no question about that. And so absolutely, this is something where we and anyone who rejects that kind of hate based on one's identity needs to be vigilant. We need to call it out. We need to be proactive in a positive way as well in terms of educating. I'm willing to do that work. There's a lot of misconceptions about the Jewish community, that we are a monolith, that we all have the same politics, that, you know, even assumptions about our income on the basis of our Jewish identity. And so doing the work to educate people about the diversity within our community, that we're truly a civilization, more than anything, with all that that entails, is part of the education. So educating, resisting, and also being sure to call these things out are all really key elements.
And I think also to praise the government when it does things well, such as the designation of Proud Boys as a white supremacist group within Canada was a step in the right direction.
Well, just in terms of that, I agree that you know, how do I put this? This is I'm gonna take a leap here and say a nuanced thing, which no one seems to really like in politics. These designations are very serious things, and so they have to be made with due process and proper diligence and so forth. I did not think that it was the appropriate venue for the Parliament to be voting on this designation without having any concrete evidence, without having access to the evidence one would need to make such a serious designation. But if the proper processes have been followed, then absolutely. That legislation, though, that designation relies on, I think it's important for me to say, has some flaws in it. And we have seen NGOs and not-for-profits that are peacefully protesting or exercising their right to freedom of expression being caught up in that. And so while the idea and the execution are two different things, but certainly we do need to be increasingly proactive in searching out all the corners of social media, all of the corners of the country, to really identify these groups. And when we see that they, in fact, are promoting hateful ideologies, as I said, there should be no dark corner that they get to hide in.
The Jewish community, too, has not always been wholly or holistically welcoming when it comes to Jews that are not white Ashkenazi descent.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering, I know that at Betzedek, we formed a racial justice task force where we're really looking at our own actions and behaviors with regard to being a truly welcoming community for the broad diversity of the Jewish people. I'm just wondering if you've experienced, even within the Jewish community, microaggressions and, just people's ignorance, about your Jewish identity and your role within the Jewish community, and what advice you might have to the rest of us in terms of how to address some of those issues.
I try to be, again, very understanding whenever it is at all possible. And I know that here in North America, the heuristic and I'm sorry, every once in a while if I slip into the very wonky, you know, wording. I'm pretty sure my mother-in-law is online watching you right now. We have very good family friends that are members of your congregation, and so I'm pretty sure some of them are there. But we have heuristics here in North America about what a Jewish person looks like, right? We are accustomed to Jewish people. When we think of it, when we imagine it in our head, it is an Ashkenaz person in general, not even Sephardi. And they're either they came or their families came from Eastern Europe in general, not even other parts of Europe. That is what comes to mind, and that is a very powerful default within people. And so I understand that, and I don't take offense at that. My experience in general, whether it's in the Jewish community here, the Jewish community in the United States, because I was very, very lucky to spend a number of years as a student down in the United States and as a member of the Jewish community on the campus that I studied on. I also was a member of the Jewish community in Belgium for 6 years, and then the Jewish community in Spain as well for about the same amount of time. And I found for myself and my family, because I have 2 children, it has always been a warm and welcoming experience. Yes, eyes get raised a few times when they see my sons. My older son worked at a very popular restaurant on St. Clair where there's a lot of Jewish clientele. And he had always wears this massive Magen David that he got for his bar mitzvah. And they would ask, you Jewish, or is it jewelry, or are you Jewish? And they were interested in his story. So it was more curiosity. But for me, it has been a home. Wherever we've lived, the Jewish community has been home. It has been the place of welcome and support. And yes, there's some curiosity about me and my background and so forth, but nothing that has made me feel unwelcome.
In the time that's remaining, do you have a message, a vision, a word that you'd like to share, looking to the future, to post-COVID, God willing, soon? As we say, Bimheira v'yameinu, may it happen speedily in our days, to share with our audience.
Certainly, just to say, as someone who, as you said, lives at these various intersections, I hope that I get to be a bridge between communities. There is a lot of nostalgia, particularly at this moment, for what was considered to be a support between the Black community and the Jewish community in North America at moments when it was really needed. And I would say that this is another one of those moments. There's still so much work to be done. And if those of us who really understand what it means to be persecuted, what it means to be oppressed, what it means to struggle to just exist, be able to exist in the skin that you were born in the culture you were born in, the traditions you were born in, those of us who understand that really need to support each other. And then I would say to our community in general that as strange as it may seem, we still need to be more involved in political life, particularly at the highest levels. I know that it is a place that many of us don't feel comfortable. It's a bit too out in front, and that we do open ourselves up to some difficulties, and I've shared some of that, but it is worth it, and our voices are needed there. I hope you will encourage the young people that you know in the community to consider dedicating some of their life to public service, because we're at a moment where their talent and their commitment, their passion is really, really needed. We all need to benefit from that. So we don't want them to be scared away, and they need encouragement.
So on that point, I would say that at Beth Tzedek, our vision and mission is to inspire and enable our community to live meaningful Jewish lives. And one of the values that we have identified for that is the value of give and get, the need to be engaged in social justice and in public service. So certainly that's one of the values that we promote. I would just add, the coincidence of the Torah reading cycle this year, at this moment. Last Shabbat, we read of the Egel Zahav, of the golden calf, of Israel Israel definitely out of fear and anxiety, moving away from their core values of belief in God. And this week's Parsha is Vayakel Pekude. Vayakel is about the regathering of the people after that crisis and rededicating themselves to the Mishkan, to the tabernacle, where God dwells not in it as a tent, but rather betocham, within the people. And so may we all continue to gather together during COVID, mostly virtually, hopefully not in the not too distant future, again in person, but spiritually to gather with each other as a community, with the larger GTA and province and country in which we live, and to do our best to be reflective and expressive of God's values in the world. Annamie, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing this day with us. We know you have a very, very busy schedule, and we wish you lots of luck as you continue to lead the Green Party and to be an important voice in Canada for the future. And as you wished us at the beginning, I'll wish you and your family at the end a Chag Pesach Kasher Sameach, a happy and a healthy Passover for you and to your family, and for everyone who's joining us. Thank you, everyone. To find out everything that's happening
Sure. Sorry, I have to just, please, if you don't indulge me, I just wanted to say hello to Ruthie and Abby Heisman. Do you recognize the name? I couldn't.
All right, there you go. You got a shout out.
You have the most menschy of all mensches of grandsons and great nephews. I have to say, Noah Zatzman is just a wonderful, wonderful person, and I had to say hello on his behalf.
All right. To find out everything that's happening at Beth Tzedek, visit us at our website, www.beth-tzedek.org.